Welcome back to Four Corners Finance, where we break down the most important financial news from across the Southwest United States and beyond. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic, one that not only affects Arizona, but may also have a significant impact on the 2024 U.S. presidential election. We're talking about the proposed Resolution copper mine in Arizona and the battle brewing over its development. You can see we have this article from Reuters we're going to go through, as well as some stocks of the joint venture that owns Resolution, which is a joint partnership between BHP and Rio Tinto. So diving in, what is the big deal about copper and this mine specifically? What do you know about it? Well, Arizona is at the center of a contentious debate involving the proposed Resolution copper mine, which, if approved, would supply over a quarter of America's copper needs, according to this article in Reuters we'll get to. Copper is really critical for the green energy transition. It's a key component of the electric vehicle, wind turbines, other renewable energy technologies, water infrastructure, etc. So the stakes are incredibly high here, Arizona, which really is turning into a battleground state politically, long been known as a red state, but in 2020, Joe Biden carried the state, and Arizona sent some Democratic senators to Washington, as well as elected a Democratic governor. So really shows you the demographic shift in Arizona. The population center, Maricopa County, which is the home to Phoenix, has really been one of the largest growing counties in the country. Very, very rapid growth out in Arizona in the Phoenix area. So we'll dive into that a little bit. But here's why things are really getting complicated. The mine's facing some fierce opposition from Native American tribes, particularly the San Carlos Apache, as well as environmentalist groups. Mine would create a massive crater on some sacred land where the Apache people worship, and that's really fueled some deep resentment and protest against the mine. You can see here Rio Tinto and BHP, co-owners. It's part about a quarter of the supply. I'll paste the link to this article in the description. So Arizona has a significant Native American population. See in this article mentioned somewhere down here about 400,000 strong Native American population. This was pivotal in helping swing the 2020 election in favor of President Biden. These communities now flexing their electoral power, getting a good voter turnout. They're urging Vice President Kamala Harris, who's the Democratic nominee, to block the mine if she wins in 2024. So in this battleground state, the issue of copper mining is not just environmental, but it's also political as well as economic. So remember, it's not just about mining. It's about the economy, debate about jobs, America's quest for energy independence. Again, the U.S. imports nearly half of its copper needs and has seen its copper production drop by 11% since 2021. There's really only 2 copper smelters left in the United States, both near the Resolution mine. One is owned by American mining company Freeport-McMoRan, not far at all from the Resolution mine. But you can see there's need for domestic copper. It's really more urgent than ever, especially with China dominating the global copper supply, or at least the production of and refinement of copper. Copper largely found in rock and ore bodies. It's extracted from the ore in order to produce the shiny metal that you see coating pennies and making its way into pipes and in wire and cable applications. The copper needs to be refined either through a hydrometallurgical process or fire refined through traditional smelting and refining. Really depends on the ore bodies. Get into that more, but China is a dominant player in the smelting and refining of copper for certain geopolitical tension reasons. The U.S. in a lot of Western economies have been pushing away some dependence on Chinese manufacturing and Chinese imports, opting to bolster domestic production of certain goods and services that largely made their way to China. So at the center of this debate, on one side, you have tribes and environmentalists arguing that this land is sacred, should remain untouched. On the other hand, you've got proponents like the Arizona Mining Association, which says blocking this mine will increase our reliance on imports and hurt some small Arizona towns. Copper mining, very labor intensive and a big job provider, well-paying jobs in some Arizona, especially some of the more rural counties where these mines lay. And we'll pull it up on the map a little bit later to see. So it's a very high stakes situation. It not only affects the future of mining, but the outcome of the 2024 election, with Arizona shaping up to be a key swing state now. Growing population. I think the latest census that might have gotten more congressional seats, or right on the verge of getting more congressional seats. So it's becoming a more critical state in these federal elections, particularly the presidential election in 2020. I think Arizona may have surprised the Donald Trump camp when they sent Biden their electoral votes for Joe Biden, which traditionally has been a red state, Arizona. So you can really see the shift happening. But so wanted to get into some critical materials. Copper, said earlier, is a critical material. See here, the Energy Act of 2020 defines critical materials. You can see the definition: non-fuel mineral, element, substance, or material. The Secretary of Energy determines one has a high risk of supply chain disruption. Two, serves an essential function, one or more energy technologies, including technologies that produce, transmit, store, and conserve energy. And then I'll post the link to this site, but there's a good video, 2-minute long video about what is a critical mineral. And you can see 2023, they've made the critical minerals list. 2022, here's a list, but critical minerals for energy, you can see copper, the electric, part of the electric 18, they've dubbed. And Arizona is a very copper-rich state. Again, other mining operations, large player Freeport-McMoRan operating in the state, BHP, other sites all around the state, and as well as New Mexico. But this is a good list with some graphics here that show in the short run, you can see copper right here, kind of this bar of near critical, not very high level of importance in the short run. This is from 2020 to 2025. We're coming up on 2025 here, and we get to the medium-term view of when this was published. And looking at 2025 and beyond, you see copper jumps up a notch on the importance to energy and the energy transition. Solar as well as wind, very reliant on copper. So given that we're like to talk about finance here at Four Corners Finance, we're going to talk briefly about the two main companies Have the partnership for the Resolution Mine. We've got BHP. And here's the BHP profile. We're just on Yahoo Finance, accessible to everybody. See BHP, an Australian-based company. Australia, very research-rich economy. Mining operations all around the world. BHP, large player in iron ore, also copper and coal segments. You can see some of these other elements: copper, uranium, gold, zinc, lead, molybdenum, silver, some minerals or byproducts of other mining. Copper here in the US, molybdenum comes with the territory, but they're also engaged, BHP, in smelting and refining nickel, potash. Just a large organization. See how large. Let's do a 5-year view on it. This is just a 5-year outlook. You can see not a ton of growth in the stock price, from really mid 40s to low 50s, almost no growth over the last several years. But these companies are often large dividend payers. You could see BHP currently at its share price is about a 5.5% dividend, $2.92 a share. Just went ex-dividend last week. Multiples, it's 17 times earnings. And you see a fairly large company, $135 billion market capitalization. Go into some of the statistics. You see some of the other key features of the company. There's market cap, enterprise value, not listed, the price earnings to growth ratio. You can see price to sales, price to book. Profit margin of 14%, operating margin 42.6%. Return on assets just under 14%. Return on equity 19.6%. Not bad metrics. 56 billion in revenue. These mining organizations. One thing to note, if you are investing in mining companies, is their revenues are not only based off of the volume that they produce, but also the commodity price of the commodities that they sell, which they are not price makers in the same fashion Apple or another consumer discretionary type of product would have a little more pricing power. They sell commodities. Commodities are traded on exchanges. Copper largely traded around the world on price set by the London Metal Exchange, United States COMEX. There's a exchange in Shanghai, but these organizations are price takers for the materials that they sell. So nature of the business is prices are high. You want to see them do well and make their money to build some resilience for the next downturn in the cycle of prices when times are not so good. So you can kind of see BHP here, EBITDA quarterly earnings growth, but they've got a decent amount of cash on hand, $12.5 billion of cash, total debt at $22 billion, debt to equity ratio 45%. So not a tremendously over leveraged company, although the mining industry tends to be very capital intensive. A lot of these companies have complicated financing agreements, large credit facilities that they use. But BHP, looking at its debt to equity, doesn't seem to be fairly over leveraged. You can take that as you will. And also, if you have any insight you'd like to leave in the comments, please do so. You can see the stock price relative to the S&P, down on a year. The S&P is up. So not a great return, even factoring in the dividend. You're probably down in the last 52 weeks on the stock. 52-week high of 69, the low of 50, just under 51. So hovering just above the low of the year, a little less than 10% above the low price. In trading below both the 50 and 200-day moving averages. So maybe something worth keeping an eye on if you're interested in mining companies. And you can see some of the dividend metrics. Here's trailing 5-year average dividend has been 7.3. So with no growth over the last 5 years. The dividend's a little lower. Lead to believe maybe it's been reduced without looking. I'd have to go back and check. But sometimes these mining companies, the dividends are not as consistent as, say, a dividend aristocrat or dividend king like a Coca-Cola or a Johnson & Johnson, who have a long track record of raising dividends. They'll tend to fluctuate based on profitability. And you could see BHP, looking at the dividend payout ratio, the amount of earnings that are paid out as dividends, it's almost 100%. It's just under 98%. So not a lot of cushion if earnings go down to really raise dividends. You'd see just based on the payout ratio alone, maybe other factors at play, but currently it's a fairly high payout ratio. And we'll move along to Rio Tinto, same scenario. We'll start with the profile. The Rio Tinto, domiciled in the United Kingdom. It's an old mining company, very similar to BHP, mine all around the world. Rio Tinto, you see, founded 1873, headquarters in London. But here's some of the minerals that they produce: iron ore, aluminum, copper. Iron ore is a large segment for Rio Tinto. A lot of production in Western Australia, very resource-rich economy in Australia. You can see some aluminum, copper segment, which oftentimes gold, silver, molybdenum are byproducts of copper mining. Let's go to their summary. Again, this is just Yahoo Finance, accessible to everybody. Draw out the 5-year chart. We'll run. And similar pattern here we see as BHP. Not a lot of growth over the last 5 years in the stock price. It's really hovered from the low 50s to the low 60s over the last 5 years. But in the meantime, if you've been a holder over that time, not a lot of growth in the share price, but a pretty decent dividend here. Currently close to 7%, just under 7%, $4.35 a share. Rio Tinto trades smaller PE ratio than BHP. See the multiples below 10, much lower than the overall S&P 500 multiple currently. Market cap, another large mining organization, almost $100 billion in market cap. We'll roll over to some key statistics. We have the market cap. You see the fairly low multiples, but the mining industry, again, not historically a high growth industry. And you can maybe see that's reflected in some of the earning multiples that investors are willing to pay up for to own some of these stocks. Rio Tinto been in business since the 1870s, very old, mature companies. They're more cash cows. You'd like to see they pay high dividends, but not very big multiples, especially relative to the S&P right now. So profit margin's got a decent margins, 20% almost on the profit margin, operating margin just under 29%. Got return on assets of just over 9%, return on equity close to 20%. Revenue of $54 billion. You can let's look again. It's cash pile, $9.8 billion in cash. A total debt of $14 billion. And a debt to equity ratio, according to Yahoo Finance, of 25%. So again, Rio Tinto, not overly leveraged, maybe has in a good financial position if we do head into recessionary times in the balance sheet. Like to think that it can withstand some rainy days, given that it's not overly leveraged. You see some operating cash flows, 15 billion, leverage free cash flow, almost 7 billion. And once again, just like BHP, Rio Tinto, the 52-week range down 4% compared to the S&P 500 gain of over 26%. It's been a really standout year, past 52 weeks for the S&P 500. You're probably about even on Rio Tinto, a little in the positive when you factor in the dividend. But again, too, Rio Tinto, like BHP, current share price 62.5, closer to the 52-week low than the 52-week high. 62.50 trading slightly below both the 50 and 200-day moving averages. So again, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Do you think these reclaim those 200-day averages, make runs close to the highs, or continue to hover around lows or make new lows? Interesting to see. Again, a lot based on the commodity prices for which they don't control. And let's look at the dividend as well. Again, dividend is closer to 7%. It's very close to its 5-year average. The payout ratio here is 66%, which is still fairly high, but something likely to see from some of these mature cash cow types of companies. International companies as well tend to pay high dividends, but not nearly as high of a payout ratio as we saw with BHP, close to 100%. It's about closer to 2/3 of the earnings paid out to shareholders in dividends for Rio Tinto. I want to go to the map and look where this is. We talked a little bit about the Southwest here. This is Four Corners Finance, Arizona, one of the Four Corner states here in the Southwestern United States. And this is a map showing the Phoenix area over on the left, Scottsdale, all the metro of eastern Maricopa County, down into some of the rural areas, Apache Junction. If you follow this Highway 60 out east into the mountains, the beautiful Superstition Mountains here in Arizona, lots of great hiking out there. But you go through, and here you can see Resolution Mine. I'm not exactly sure where the mine is. I found a couple of spots that show Resolution Copper. I do know it's somewhere out in this Highway 60. I believe it's in this area near the West Plant. So we zoom in a little bit. You can kind of see looking like some ponds, tailing ponds maybe, whatever those might be, ponds for the mines being built. This could be some of the area that the Apaches are in protest. Some good hiking trails out here, beautiful mountains out in eastern Arizona near the Superstitions, but you can take this highway a little further. Just getting into that environmental piece, you can see there's some old historic mining. Arizona, again, big state for copper mining in the U.S. Here's the Ray mine. This is an old mine. You can visit this mine and go to the viewpoint and look out over the Ray mine, operating one of the smelters as well in the U.S. But you can see these are big open pit mines. They're dug out, big craters in the ground that we can see here from really zoomed out. You can see the sort of scars in the landscape from these open pit mines. And these companies, a lot of environmental liability that they have to carry, a lot of reclamation work that comes into play when you're talking about shutting these mines down and walking away from them. So probably not very high ore grades, but you've got the infrastructure built out here in Arizona, keep these running. And we just moved to the north a little more too. You could see the remnants of Miami Globe area, another area you can visit. An old historic mining district in Arizona, or copper mine. It's a Freeport-McMoRan property now. The mine is largely inactive. You can see the Freeport-McMoRan smelter if you drive out to Globe, Miami, where they take copper concentrates and refine them into a piece of the copper refining product that gets sent down to a refinery. But the mining is fairly inactive out here now. But you can see, these dugout steps here, the mine. There's these little pits over here where they mined over the years. And I think there was a collapse here some years ago, but they're no longer mining actively here. But a very old mining district, big piece of the Arizona economy, many years. Miami, not Miami, Florida, Miami, Arizona. It was a really nice drive. You're looking to take a scenic route through Arizona. You could see some industry here in the Globe. Here's another Resolution mine site. I don't believe this is where the mine is. I think it's closer to this one down here, but somebody, if they know in the comments, can correct me. But that's really it. That's all we wanted to go through. As always, we'll be keeping an eye on this issue, bringing you latest updates, but something fun to keep watch of in the state of Arizona, how it's becoming a key player in federal elections, also a key state for energy economy, minerals economy, and really an important factor in a lot of these talks about energy transition to greener energies. Arizona is right at the center of it. Arizona, New Mexico, these four corner regions. So what do you think? Will copper mining in Arizona be a turning point in the election? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to stay updated with Four Corners Finance, the go-to source for finance, and now some political news here in the Southwestern U.S. Take care. See you next time.